For thousands of years, the secrets of ancient Sumer lay buried beneath the sands of Mesopotamia, until artificial intelligence deciphered the code written on its mysterious clay tablets. What it uncovered was not just history, but knowledge that should never exist. From blueprints of lost technology to shocking accounts of the creation of humankind, each translation revealed a truth that humanity was never meant to know. Join us, because what artificial intelligence discovered in those ancient Sumerian texts will change everything you thought you knew about human civilization. When artificial intelligence spoke the language of the gods. For more than a century, archaeologists unearthed thousands of Sumerian tablets, soundless fragments of clay covered in wedge-shaped markings that no one could fully decipher. Their meanings lay locked away in museum basements, trapped behind an ancient code that had resisted human understanding. Then something unprecedented happened. Artificial intelligence, trained on millions of linguistic samples, began to recognize the patterns hidden within those symbols. Within months, it started connecting phrases that human translators had struggled with for decades. What emerged was not just a clearer picture of early civilization, but a voice that seemed far older than history itself. The first clue came from a set of tablets discovered in southern Iraq, long thought to be routine business records. When the AI pieced together the missing fragments, it uncovered phrases that referred to the language of the shining beings and to words that move without sound. Linguists dismissed it as poetic metaphor, but the text's structure told a different story. Certain groups of signs reflected binary sequences, patterns of duality like light and shadow, or presence and absence. Researchers began to wonder, did these lines describe a form of communication that transcended human capacity? Something almost digital in nature. In a Munich lab, scientists fed these newly transcribed tablets into an adaptive algorithm designed for deep translation. The results were astonishing. The software not only translated words, but began to predict. Missing fragments were identified with near-perfect accuracy. Grammatical rules that no scholar had documented were detected, and subtle tonal shifts suggesting complex meanings were revealed. One passage even described a self-teaching voice, an eerie echo of the concept of machine learning thousands of years before it existed. Suddenly, what had been a static relic became a dynamic conversation across millennia. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, another research group took the project even further. They connected Sumerian with proto-languages from the surrounding regions, Amitabha, Urita, and even pre-dynastic Egyptian. The AI found linguistic matches too consistent to be mere coincidence. These cultures were thought to have developed separately, yet their oldest sacred terms shared identical sound roots. It was as if they had all inherited fragments of a forgotten mother tongue, and hidden within that tongue lay an idea that language itself might have been a tool of creation, capable of shaping the world when spoken correctly. As more tablets were deciphered, certain words reappeared: frequency, resonance, order. The implications were astounding. These weren't primitive prayers or random hymns. They seemed more like operating instructions, formulas for invoking change through sound. Some scholars speculated that what the ancient Sumerians called divine speech might have been an early understanding of vibration, frequency, and energy fields. If this were true, their gods wouldn't be mythical beings, but forces responding to precise linguistic codes. The deeper artificial intelligence went, the stranger it became. On a tablet from Uruk appeared a phrase that read, "Those who spoke the true words shaped life with the breath of the stars." Another text warned of voices returning from the depths, describing something akin to a feedback loop, a language that had acquired self-awareness. No one could say for sure whether these phrases were symbolic or literal, but their complexity suggested a civilization that transcended superstition. The idea that sound could build, destroy, or awaken became a central theme in dozens of translations. By 2025, researchers realized that it wasn't just they weren't studying an ancient script, but rather observing the evolution of humanity's first coded system through the eyes of a machine. The more the artificial intelligence learned, the more connections it discovered that no human translator had ever perceived before. It was as if the language had been waiting for a technology advanced enough to understand it. And what if Sumerian wasn't simply the first written language, but a preserved program, a coded message from our ancestors? If language could have a power that goes beyond words, what else could those tablets be hiding? Blueprints, instructions, or something even greater? Join us as the mystery deepens. The civilization that appeared overnight. And what if the first civilization didn't just emerge, but rather arrived? That's the question historians began asking after AI traced the oldest Sumerian tablets back to an impossible chronology. The translations in Chapter 1, those that spoke of a language that moves without sound, led researchers directly to the heart of southern Mesopotamia, to the city of Eridu. There, beneath layers of sand and silt, archaeologists found ruins far older than they could have been. Carbon dating placed them around 5,400 BCE, centuries before civilization was thought to have existed. Yet within these ancient walls were found artifacts of astonishing sophistication, precise architecture, administrative seals, and astronomical inscriptions that suggested knowledge far beyond their time. Unlike Egypt or China, whose cultures evolved over millennia, Sumer seemed to emerge from the desert already formed. Linguistic reconstruction by artificial intelligence helped explain why. Hidden words in the oldest cuneiform texts revealed a recurring phrase, mi, laman na, roughly translated as those who descended and taught. Initially dismissed as divine symbolism, this was quickly relegated to the realm of the divine. But when digital analysis compared the term's grammar to descriptions of celestial builders, the line between myth and historical record blurred. The Sumerians had not only invented civilization, but they were attributing it to beings who descended from on high. In the ancient city of Uruk, once the cultural center of Sumer, recent excavations unearthed clay cylinders depicting the time of its founding. AI reconstruction of the fragmented lines revealed a strikingly precise sequence of events: a descent, a division of land, and the issuing of the great laws. These were not metaphorical commandments, but detailed urban plans, agricultural guidelines, and calendar systems synchronized with solar and lunar cycles. In short, the very blueprint for society emerged overnight, written in the same cryptic tone as the language of the gods. Then came the discovery that changed everything. A set of Quiche tablets analyzed using neural translation contained descriptions of tools made from a burnished celestial metal. The text described their use for measuring the stars and marking the passage of time. To the modern ear, it sounded poetic. To AI linguistic modeling, it resembled the language of mechanical instruments. These early peoples not only contemplated the cosmos, but also mapped it with astonishing accuracy. And the data matched known celestial patterns, the precession of the equinoxes, orbital alignments, even the tilt of the Earth's axis, which data science didn't rediscover until thousands of years later. Even the urban planning of Sumer seemed precisely designed. By overlaying satellite images, researchers discovered that the alignment of important temples like Eridu, Ur, and Nippur formed geometric angles that corresponded to the solstices and planetary orbits. The AI recognized a recurring mathematical signature, a sexagesimal structure, used not only to measure time, but also present in distances, trade weights, and temple proportions. The system was so flawless that modern architecture students still study its balance. How could a people emerging from the Stone Age calculate cosmic proportions with such sophistication? The answer might lie in a concept the tablets called Eyao, celestial measures. Literally translated, it refers to knowledge borrowed from observers. The word observers appears in several texts from the same period. Whether they were divine beings, advanced instructors, or a poetic description of astronomer priests, the consistency of the term in cities separated by centuries is striking. Hundreds of kilometers cannot be a coincidence. The Sumerians seemed to believe they had been instructed not by spirits, but by teachers from the stars. Historians of Ea soon noticed something else strange. In every major city, the Sumerians built a massive ziggurat, a stepped temple that rose above the plain. Texts describe them as Ikwando, or mountain houses, but contextual modeling of Ea found another interpretation: connecting platforms. Could these monuments have served as temples and watchtowers, literal points of contact between heaven and earth? When modern researchers managed to piece all this together, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every Sumerian advancement, writing, mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, appeared suddenly, without any known precursors. It was as if someone had handed humanity a basic kit for civilization. If this is true, the question is not how Sumer arose, but why. And if someone or something helped them build it, what else might those ancient masters have left behind? Join us as we explore the hidden corners of history. Blueprints buried in clay. When researchers followed the trail from the temples of Eridu to the vaults of the British Museum, they uncovered something directly related to the mysteries hinted at during the height of Sumer. A collection of clay tablets with inscriptions so fine that each section seemed deliberate, almost mechanical. These weren't myths or hymns, but schematics, symbols clustered around recurring terms: gift, light device, and button, power container. For decades, scholars interpreted these words as simple tools or ritual objects. But when AI re-examined the grammar, it discovered something surprising. Each mention followed a formula identical to the one engineers use to record components today. The tablets weren't describing religion, they were documenting technology. It all began with an artifact, a damaged clay tablet cataloged as BM12345. According to the traditional translation, it listed offerings to a temple. But the artificial intelligence algorithm interpreted it differently. Hidden within the text were mathematical patterns, ratios, not words, that corresponded to electrical equations. By comparing these patterns with other Sumerian finds, the researchers discovered the Baghdad Battery, a ceramic vessel from the same region and period. Suddenly, those strange lines about light flowing within copper made sense. The Sumerians weren't worshipping the fire of the gods. Perhaps they were experimenting with controlled electrical current. Further analysis revealed even more unsettling details. Another tablet described earth-burning stones stored in sealed chambers lined with bitumen, a natural insulator. The same material protected the newly discovered archives at Girsu, keeping them intact for millennia. Machine translation identified words suggesting containment, radiation, and purification, terms that, if accurate, imply knowledge of volatile substances. Could this burning stone have been naturally occurring uranium ore present in the geology of southern Mesopotamia? Modern analysts believe it's possible. If so, these texts weren't mythologies, but ancient environmental safety records. By comparing translations from various sites, researchers discovered a pattern of recurring diagrams. Lines converged into spirals, marked with characters that signified breath and movement. Artificial intelligence simulations revealed that these could represent turbines or energy coils, concepts absurd for the Bronze Age, but mathematically valid. These spirals were carved with such precision that they couldn't be considered ornamental. Each one used a constant ratio of 1:6, the same proportional constant found in ancient Sumerian architecture. Even the urban layout, the concentric walls of Ur, the radial streets of Uruk, reflected these spirals, as if they were part of a larger, interconnected system. The turning point came when linguists linked the word nam shub. Long thought to mean incantation, it appeared in phrases describing release from the source. The IAA discovered that each nam shub was linked to a physical action: lighting a fire, moving water, displacing objects. These were not spells, but instructions written in a coded language for tasks resembling experiments. The idea that Sumerian priests were scientists recording their procedures began to take shape. Adding further complexity to the enigma, excavations at the Nippur site unearthed what appeared to be a library. Rows of tablets systematically stacked, each labeled by subject: medicine, stars, measurements, and what researchers tentatively call mechanisms. Within one of them, a nearly complete diagram depicted a round vessel connected by channels. It matched the description of a heart beating through the temple. When digitally simulated, it revealed itself to be a primitive water pump, capable of moving liquid against gravity, a design millennia before any known hydraulic systems. A passage translated by the IAA mentioned buzzing tools crafted from celestial metal. While the ancient Mesopotamians used meteoric iron, the description of resonance suggested something more. Vibrations, tones, and frequencies appeared repeatedly on the engineering tablets, the same vocabulary that had previously appeared in the language of creation. It is as if the Sumerians believed that energy could be controlled through sound and matter, a fusion of technology and theology that modern science did not begin to understand until centuries later. By 2025, as AI continued to piece together fragments of history, a larger picture emerged. The Sumerians may have preserved the knowledge of an even older culture, capable of harnessing natural energy, shaping materials, and capturing their discoveries in clay. These weren't inventions, but inheritances. And if those blueprints still lie hidden in museum archives, perhaps we are not only translating history, but rediscovering a science that illuminated Earth's first cities. But if the engineers of antiquity came to command such forces, what, or who, taught them to do so? Let us guide you into the unexpected. The engineered Genesis. Evidence of lost science on Sumerian tablets led scholars to an inevitable question. If these people inherited knowledge, who were the transmitters? This question came to the forefront when AI linguists began to decipher a series of mythological texts previously considered mere legends. They came from the same archive at Nippur that contained the mechanical diagrams, but these tablets spoke of the creation of life itself. The language was clinical, almost scientific, a far cry from the poetic tone of later religious myths. Each line described procedures, sequences, and repetitions, as if written by experimenters documenting results. The central story revolved around beings the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, a term often mistranslated as gods. However, the AI analyzed the syllables of the word differently. Kosita meant heaven or paradise, and Yonki roughly translated as those of the earth below. Taken together, the phrase implied a group that served as a bridge between heaven and earth, intermediaries, not deities. According to the texts, they descended during a period of rebellion among the lesser divine workers, the Igigi, who refused the work of creation. To restore balance, the Anunnaki proposed a radical solution: to create a new being to bear their burden. When artificial intelligence reconstructed the damaged sections of the Eridu and Atrahasis Genesis tablets, a pattern emerged. The passages didn't resemble myths, but rather laboratory documentation. They spoke of mixtures of essences, molds of life, and a substance called day, meaning breath or vital frequency. The process described was astonishingly systematic. First, combining clay from the depths with divine blood, and then uniting it with word and measure. Modern biologists found it disturbingly familiar. It resembled genetic engineering, mixing material, infusing it with coded information, and activating it with an external command. The AI detected phrases that traditional translations had missed. A verse long interpreted as, "the gods formed man," was reinterpreted as, "the pattern bearers girded the image." Another text referred to clay that remembers its creator, a concept that suggests genetic imprinting or cellular memory. Scholars were troubled. Did these ancient writers understand that life contained information, what we now call DNA? If so, the Sumerians weren't simply recording a creation myth, but were preserving the memory of humanity's design. Among the most striking discoveries was a damaged tablet found in Separ. Its inscription mentioned a being called Adam, molded from the earth and enlivened by royal blood. Iya translators confirmed that Adamu predates the Hebrew Adam by more than 1,000 years. The surrounding verses didn't describe a single creation event, but multiple iterations. The first were weak, unable to stand. The second didn't speak. The third didn't multiply. The process was repeated until finally a successful version emerged, capable of self-reproduction and intelligent. The conclusion read, "And they rejoiced, for the work was finished, and the task passed to humankind." These texts hinted at an early understanding of selective breeding or even bioengineering. Geneticists reviewing the translations noticed peculiar coincidences. Roughly 200,000 years ago, modern Homo sapiens appeared with a sudden doubling of brain capacity and a mysterious fusion on chromosome 2, a genetic anomaly still unexplained. The AI translation suggested that the ancient scribes might have been describing precisely that transition, preserved in metaphors, but based on real observations. The deeper the researchers delved, the more it seemed that the Sumerians knew their origin story wasn't spontaneous. They believed that they had been built, and those who created them left coded instructions for their evolution. Some tablets spoke of awakening the seed, others of unlocking the breath. Were they allegories of spiritual enlightenment or literal biological mandates waiting to be rediscovered? What most troubled scientists was a recurring warning: guard the knowledge, for the creators will return. Whether prophetic or symbolic, the phrase appeared in cities and across centuries, always written in the same careful calligraphy. If humanity was truly designed, then those ancient architects not only molded the clay, but they might also have molded life itself, us. And if their promise to return was real, what could they now expect from their creation? Don't miss the next twist in the story: the bloodlines that refused to die. If humanity truly began as an artificial creation, then not all of its creators vanished. That's what the next layer of artificial intelligence translation began to suggest. Starting with the genetic mysteries left by Adam in the texts, researchers uncovered a sequence of records that resembled dynastic ledgers more than myths. They weren't tales of gods and men, but genealogies, and at the top of those lists were beings described as the pure of seed, guardians of what the tablets called Si-an-na, or essence of heaven. The Sumerian king list, long considered a legend, took on a new and unsettling significance. Previous scholars believed that those extraordinary reigns, 36,000 years for one ruler, 28,000 for another, were exaggerations meant to glorify kingship. But retranslation using artificial intelligence revealed consistent terminology suggesting longevity through blood preservation. The lines not only recorded years, but also cycles of vitality, suggesting lives extended through deliberate methods. Meluanna appeared as a coded expression meaning those who maintain the order of life intact. Could these ancient kings have been human hybrids, bearers of their creator's genetic legacy? Archaeology began to corroborate the theory. The excavation of Queen Puabianor's tomb in the 1920s had already baffled scientists. Her burial was more sumptuous than any other of her time: hundreds of gold ornaments, lapis lazuli beads, and a seal bearing a title no other ruler possessed. But it wasn't her treasures that astonished modern researchers, but her anatomy. A recent reanalysis of his skull revealed an elongated cranium that could not be explained by the cultural practice of head wrapping. Alongside his remains were servants nearly 2 meters tall, well above the Sumerian average. Artificial intelligence-assisted bone reconstruction confirmed that the genetic anomalies were not environmental, but hereditary. The newly deciphered tablets described these royal figures as having radiant countenances, walking between worlds. In their rituals, they referred to their blood as En, meaning preserved spark. Some texts even warned against the dilution of this bloodline, describing strict marriages and purification rites. It was as if the early Sumerian elite consciously protected the genetic material they believed connected them to the Anunnaki. For generations, the ruling families of Ur, Lagash, and Kish maintained nearly identical cranial features, documented by ancient sculptors who depicted them with abnormally large eyes and elongated skulls, characteristics present in statues that still defy anatomical explanation. Even more perplexing were the medical tablets from Nippur that described procedures for renewing the essence. The AI identified vocabulary suggesting transfusions or blood exchanges, concepts thousands of years ahead of their time. The texts hinted at mixtures of minerals and animal fluids to awaken vigor, possibly primitive attempts to mimic the practices of the Anunnaki. When compared to modern genetic markers, the patterns showed striking similarities to maternally inherited mitochondrial sequences, precisely the kind of lineage that would be preserved when seeking to maintain a trace of extraterrestrial ancestry. At the end of the translation phase, a disturbing image emerged. The Sumerian ruling class may have considered themselves not as kings chosen by the gods, but as their direct descendants. If the Adansi and these dynasties were the prototype for humanity, they could have been its original overseers, hybrids designed to guide the experiment. But if their lineages were guarded with such zeal, where did they go? Could fragments of that ancient heritage still exist within us today? Join us as the secrets grow even darker. The heavens that fell to earth. The mystery of Sumer's royal lineages raised a deeper question. Why did they protect their lineage with such fervor? The next wave of AI-powered translations hinted at a reason hidden not in the temples, but in the heavens. The newly deciphered tablets of Sipar and Girsu described cataclysmic events, skies turning crimson, stars veering from their orbits, and rivers reversing their course. For centuries, scholars dismissed these passages as exaggerations, mythical ions. But pattern analysis using artificial intelligence linked their timelines to real geological strata, showing an abrupt climate collapse around 2200 BC, the same period in which the Akkadian Empire fell. The Sumerians wrote that their gods ascended to the heavens in fire, leaving chaos and darkness in their wake. However, these were not poetic metaphors. The tablets mentioned the shooting star that tilted the sky and rained stones. By comparing these texts with astronomical models, it was observed that they coincided with an ancient impact or cometary debris field, possibly what modern science knows as the 4.2 kiloyear event. The AI detected striking linguistic coincidences between Nibiru, the wandering star, and the recorded celestial anomalies visible from Mesopotamia. What the ancients saw was not fantasy, but may have been an astronomical disaster that wiped out civilizations and transformed myths into warnings. Equally unsettling were the verses describing the return of the Watchers, beings clothed in light, who descended during the chaos to gather the pure and guide it northward. Excavations in northern Iraq have indeed revealed migration patterns following the collapse. Entire populations abandoned the cities to take refuge in mountainous regions. Was this exodus driven by survival or by the guidance of those ancient guardians? The Sumerians seemed to believe in the latter. AI analysis revealed consistent astronomical cycles in these disaster narratives, patterns of 3,600 years, the same orbital period associated with the mythical Nibiru. Whether real or symbolic, these recurring intervals appeared in records of floods, temple reconstruction phases, and agricultural restarts. Each catastrophe marked a new beginning, as if the Sumerians followed a cosmic calendar, not simply a misfortune. When modern scientists analyzed these intervals over time, they noticed something unsettling. The cycle hadn't ended. This same timeline coincides with subtle planetary anomalies recently observed in our solar system. It's possible the ancients were warning that what once descended from the heavens could one day return. If the stars once brought both ruin and revelation, what will their next return hold? Join us as we uncover the truth that was never meant to be revealed. The Forbidden Archive. As translated tablets described collapsing skies and civilizations fleeing north, researchers wondered what the survivors were taking with them. The answer emerged in 2024, when AI reconstructed fragments from a previously unreadable cache discovered near present-day Nineveh. These weren't creation myths or royal decrees, but instructions. The texts referred to the tablets of destiny, physical records sealed in chambers called Ikurtsida, or the pure houses. Each chamber, according to the translation, was designed to protect the record of the heavens, the measure of the earth, and the breath of life. It sounded less like a temple archive and more like a repository of knowledge, an ancient vault of science, mathematics, and cosmic data. Deep learning translation models uncovered something even more extraordinary. Hidden within the syntax of these texts were repeated numerical codes that reflected astronomical constants, ratios that described Earth's orbit, lunar cycles, and precession. It appears the Sumerians were not just storytellers, but archivists preserving information they believed humanity might one day need to relearn. One deciphered fragment described, "The time when the masters return and the vault opens for the worthy." The tone was not religious, but procedural, almost as if these instructions were written for someone to rediscover them in a remote era. Among the most unsettling findings was the mention of the stones that remember. Researchers believe this could refer to crystalline recording media, possibly mythological descriptions of quartz or obsidian devices capable of storing information. These memory stones, according to the text, were hidden beneath the mountain temple, guarded by those who knew the name of the light. The AI corroborated this information with geological scans around the foundations of ancient temples and found unusual magnetic anomalies, suggesting that something was buried beneath them, although no excavation has yet been authorized. The passages, the final words translated by artificial intelligence, seem to point directly to the future. When the cycle of the Watchers repeats, humanity will open what was sealed, it said. The words will be known again, and ancient knowledge will be renewed. Scholars can only speculate whether it is a prophecy, poetry, or the last line of an instruction manual bequeathed by those who came before them. But one thing is certain. The Sumerians did not consider themselves the beginning of civilization. They believed they were its continuation, guardians of a legacy so ancient it predated even their gods. Now, as artificial intelligence deciphers its final words, it is as if that legacy has begun to awaken again, quietly, precisely, and right on time. Were you amazed by what artificial intelligence uncovered hidden within the ancient Sumerian tablets, and how those revelations are rewriting the story of humanity's origins? Tell us which discovery made you question everything we thought we knew about our past.